Hello, Tim from Fair Play Now on the 3rd of November 2022. Before I get started on the main things I want to talk about today, it seems that this whole amnesty question, you might recall I talked about it a couple of days ago, and it regards this article in the Atlantic publication by a certain Emily Oster saying basically that we should make bygones be bygones and forget about everything that's happened over the last 2.5 years, all the bad stuff that's happened over the last 2.5 years. And the sort of pushback on her has been absolutely epic, but not in the way she was probably hoping, because almost everybody, and that includes almost everyone watching me in the comments under these videos, have all said, yeah, right, that's not going to happen. You are going to have to face the consequences of your actions, thoughts, words and deeds. And to be honest with you, I don't really blame anyone for thinking like that. In fact, I think like that myself. But as Lee from the Veritas Vincent channel said in one of his very latest videos, it's up to God, it's up to higher powers to decide on what's going to happen to these people. And mark my words, if they have something to answer for, which it certainly, from what I can see, they do, they will have to answer at one point sooner or later. So rest assured they will be doing so. And yeah, we certainly can't forget what these people have done. The likes of Andrew Neil and just Piers Morgan and so many others. Yeah, there's so many others as well. They're just two that really spring to mind. And you just think of, I've seen footage of police officers, I think it was it's in the New York area, literally picking on a little kid in a restaurant because he hadn't had the certain treatment, and they were sort of wanting him and his family to go. And yeah, it's stuff like this that the likes of Emily Oster kind of applauded and wanted. So yeah, we certainly can't forget it. And we certainly, cannot let bygones be bygones, but they will be facing consequences from, higher powers, I think, at the very least. So with that said, I'm going to move on to another injustice that these people were so happy to accept. And the one I'm going to talk about it's very nearly the 1 year anniversary. We're about 8 days off it, but we're very nearly on the anniversary of what I would regard as one of the most despicable, dishonourable, horrible things that's happened here in the UK in my lifetime. I'd say. I'd go so far to say that it is one of the most horrible things perpetrated in this country by a government on its people, and that is the treatment mandate for healthcare workers who really were hounded out of their jobs that they loved, despite the fact that they're very low paid jobs, aren't they, for carers and these care homes and all of the rest of them. They're such dedicated, passionate people who love their jobs, who work very hard, and they were hounded out of their jobs purely and simply because they'd done a little bit of research and decided that the treatment wasn't for them. And this is going to be something that is going to really sort of haunt the nation for many a year to come, because I just cannot believe that the government did that. It's absolutely disgusting. And there is the Together organisation, I've talked about them in the past, and they are writing a letter to the new health secretary here in the UK, and it's an open letter, I think, and you can kind of sign a thing to basically undersign it, and I suppose the more signatures they get before sending it to him, the better it's going to be. I've signed it myself, and it's the Apologise, Reinstate, Compensate initiative, where these 40,000 odd care home workers were forced out of their jobs. And yeah, I think the government and the new health secretary need to apologise to these people. They need to be reinstated if in fact they want to go back into their old positions. Wouldn't blame them if they didn't, to be honest. And certainly they need to be compensated, and also we need to make sure this never ever happens again in any form whatsoever. So I'll leave a link in the description box below here, and you can then go to this site and add your name to the sort of letter, open letter, signing the open letter to government. So it's not really a petition as such, it's like an open letter, and the more signatures they get, I suppose the more clout it's going to have. Anyway, kind of moving on from that, if you had argued against that this time last year, which of course many of us did, many of us spoke out about it, you would have been accused of spreading misinformation, wouldn't you? Even though it transpires a year later that the company that starts with PF have said themselves that these mandates had no justification. You might remember that lady saying in the European Parliament how they knew that their treatment wouldn't prevent transmission, so that made all of the mandates null and void. So we know that now, but this time last year you'd have been called a conspiracy theorist coming out with stuff like that. You'd have been accused of spreading misinformation, and it kind of really brings me back to the old joke of what's the difference between a conspiracy theory and the truth that gets reported in all over the place, mainstream media and all the rest of it. Well, it's 6 months or it's 12 months or whatever the time scale you want to put on it. And yeah, that really does seem to be the case. But I think the powers that shouldn't be are running scared of how all of this so-called misinformation, which I reckon you can sort of say also known as the truth, which it certainly seems to be, and the powers that shouldn't be are running scared of it, because they are... I've seen a couple of reports, one from David Clues of the Unity News Network, who I saw a very brief clip from him just now, obviously done very recently, and apparently the Mayor of Manchester, Andy Burnham, says that spreaders of misinformation should be put into prison. And I did see another article yesterday, I think it was, where members of the New Zealand government really think that, again, spreaders of misinformation should be classified as terrorists, domestic terrorists. And that is appalling, isn't it? Absolutely appalling. So you just think, hang on a minute, just because I'm questioning the mainstream narrative and I'm coming out with stuff that you don't like, you think you've got the right to put me into prison or call me sort of a terrorist or whatever. Well, no, you haven't. You have got no right whatsoever to impinge on my right to free speech. So if I've got information which I've checked and double checked and think has got validity, I don't see why you should be threatening me with stuff like that. And you've got to ask yourself as well, haven't you? Why would these people be so worried, and why would they be coming out with stuff like that? Oh yeah, he's coming out with misinformation, lock him up. If it really was just the kind of rantings of a madman, because you can recognise when people come out with really, really sort of crazy stuff, you can sort of say to yourself, nah, that's not true, that's just a load of old nonsense. And you'd think they'd have that attitude, wouldn't you? Well, just ignore this person, he's clearly sort of crazy. So why do they need to, be coming down so hard on so-called misinformation? It doesn't make any sense unless you consider, of course, that they are running scared. And I think I saw something, it must be a good year or so ago. It went along the lines of when someone comes out with things that the powers that shouldn't be don't like, first of all, it's ignored. Then it's kind of scoffed at, laughed at. Then they kind of get nasty and become threatening. And then it's accepted as the truth. So it's like a 4-stage process, isn't it? And we've seen that with a lot of stuff. So many so-called misinformation things. They've done that with, haven't they? I can think of a certain treatment that starts with the letter I, second letter is V, and they did it with that. They ignored it, then they scoffed at it, then they got nasty, and I think we are getting to the stage where in at least certain places now they are starting to accept it. So that's just one example of what I'm saying. So anyway, what I'm going to do is leave it. God, I can't believe when I start talking like this how quickly the time goes. It's already up to 12, well, nearly 13 minutes now. Just shows you how quickly time flies when you're having fun, I guess. So I'll let you go and check out that Together organisation thing, and you can put your name to it if you want. The letters there on the site, so you can have a read of it, and if you want to put your name to it, it's a very quick 30-second process, and I'll leave the link to that so you can do it in the description box below. Tim from Fair Play Now, thanks for watching.